All right, so now we're going to talk about Module 11, Lesson 3. But before we do that, let's just do a quick warm-up. I know it's kind of, you just watched the last video, but let's look at this one. Consider the line with the equation y equals 2x minus 4. What is the slope of the line? All right, so when you're looking at this, remember y equals mx plus b. That should all look familiar to you. You might not think you remember it, but we talked about this a lot. All right, so remember, m is your slope. So what would be the slope of this line? Think to yourself. Hopefully you said 2. What is the y-intercept? Now, the y-intercept is your b, so you have to look at this whole part of the second part. So it's minus 4, negative 4. What is the slope of the line that passes through this? Okay, we just did this on the last video, but remember, it is change in y over change in x. So m equals, we would take, I'm going to go this way, 8 minus 2, the y's go on top. Since I started with 8, I got to start with negative 1. Negative 1 minus 2. Don't rely on your, if you can do it in your head, that's great, but you might want to double check it sometimes with the negatives. That's where you guys make some mistakes. 8 minus 2 is 6. Negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. So therefore, negative 2 would be our slope. What is the equation of a line with a slope of 3 and a y-intercept of 2? Y equals slope is 3. Put your x. And a y-intercept of 2 would be plus 2. The profit y for a company is given by the equation where x is the number of units sold. Identify and interpret the slope in the context of this. All right, so company is given the equation, the profit, where x is the number of units sold. So they take, they're selling it, first of all, the profit, they had that, and this is your initial amount, and then it's 200 for what they're selling then. So see how it says the slope is 200. This means the company earns 200 for each additional sold. All right, so now let's go ahead and write this down, pause the video, and write this into your notebook. Go. All right, data and statistics are used frequently in sports to determine team and player rankings, to analyze the rules of competition, and for sports reporting. Many professional sports teams have an analytic department or expert that is in charge of studying players' tendencies, strengths, weaknesses. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Moneyball, but it's all about all the statistics going along with baseball. It's actually a very good movie. They can use data to predict how well a player might do. In fact, they did everything on just statistics. And it was, I think it's based on a true story. So our standards here, kind of the same thing we've been doing. I'm going to skip over this. This is reviewing what we just talked about in the last video. Here it says, the scatter plot shows the amount of time Mia spends practicing the piano and the number of mistakes she made. So the longer that she practices, the less mistakes. So that's a negative going on here. It says, write an equation in slope-intercept form for the line drawn that approximates the data. So here they drew the line. Now we don't want to use any of these black dots. We want to use clean intersections on this line. Let me see something here. Okay, so they're taking it step by step. So step 1, and again, we just talked about this, but find the slope or the rate of change of this line. When you look at what I did here, I went from the clean intersection, right here to the clean intersection right here, down 5, so negative 5, and over, but be careful. See how this whole thing right here is 1, 2. Even though we're going over 4 boxes, this is 1 and this is 2 because we're going from 2 to 4. So you got to pay attention to how the graphs are done. But either way, our slope is negative 2.5. Then you have to determine the y-intercept. So on the y-intercept, and this one is pretty basic because look where it crosses the y-axis right there at 2. You can't see that well. So right here at 11 there. So that's why our b is 11 and we have our slope and boom, we have our equation. Says the slope is about negative 2.5. This means that Mia makes about 2.5 fewer So since it says the word fewer here, that's where the 2.5. Mistakes each hour she practices. The y-intercept is about 11. So when she started with 0 hours of practice, she made 11 mistakes. It's about the same thing I just talked about. Okay. Here, the equation for the line. Why is the slope of the line negative? Because it's a negative association. She's making fewer mistakes the more she practices. All right, let's look at this one. The scatter plot shows the price of different kinds of cars and their age. Write an equation in slope-intercept form for the line that is drawn. Okay. Remember, we are not choosing the black dots, clean intersection. I want you to pause the video, look at this one, and try to figure out whether it is A, B, C, or D. Go. And you should have picked A. If you look right here, this is like right around 14,000. It's not all the way up here at 15, so that knocks out those two. And then, is it a negative slope or a positive slope? Well, hopefully you know that that is nice negative, so that's why we get A as our answer. So we didn't even have to do a lot of the hard work. We could just do by process of elimination there. So this means a car costs $1,200 less each year. A new car cost about $14,000. Boy, this is a while ago. All right, the scatter plot shows the number of text messages that are sent and received in a month by different people and their ages. They gave us the equation here. Can be used to approximate the data. So they're giving us this equation. Now, it says to predict how many text messages a person who is 55 years old will send, that's younger than me, by the way, and receive, substitute 55 for X into the equation. So right now, instead of X there, plug in 55, punch it into your calculator, pause it, and go. And when you did it, you should have got about 100 when you plug that in. Don't forget about the negatives in there. This is a negative association. So that means it's reasonable to predict that a person who's 55 years old will send and receive about 100 text messages per month. I'm a little above average there. Okay. The scatter plot shows the amount of money a company spends on advertising and the amount of money they make in sales over several months. So they drew our line here. Write an equation for the line of fit drawn, then use it to make a conjecture about the amount of money the company will make in sales if they spend $60,000 on advertising. So remember, we are not picking these individual dots. We are picking clean intersections on the graph. I'm going to give you a little hint here. Here's a pretty good clean intersection right there, which would be at what? 50 and 500. Actually a pretty good one right here at 5 and 250. Try those 2 points. Notice those are not data points. Those are points on the line itself. Go ahead, pause the video, write your equation, and then try to figure it out what it would be for 60,000. And remember, these are down here in thousands. Pause the video, take your time, and go. Okay. So this is the equation that they came up with. Yours might not be exactly, but it should be kind of close. It should be around 225, and you can look at where it is right there, or you could have found the B, which would give you a more accurate one there. And then, once your slope should have been somewhere around there, positive, it's going to be lenient there because it depends on which point you're kind of taking there. And then when you plugged it in, should be somewhere around that. Does not have to be exact, and that is in thousands. Okay. It says, why is it that? Because it talks about thousands down here. Okay, so that's why the answer was 558,600. All right, by process of elimination might be good here. Go ahead and do this problem. Go. All right. easily should have knocked out a positive slope, and then you just had to kind of see which one was the closest, and we think it was A, and it would be about 1.2 gigabytes of data. All right, here's one about comic books. They have a graph here. They just talk about, about how many more comic books would it cost, blah, 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 blah. So if you look at what it is, it's going to be about 20. I feel like I've talked a long time on these videos, so you can look at this one if you want to. If you want to pause it and look at it and so forth, that's fine. But at this point, you can go ahead. You should receive a packet. I want you working on those, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a good one, guys.